Nice shirt, Beth.
Thanks, Tyrell. Hey guys, I guess my question to start off is, where do you draw the line between representing yourself, your real experiences, and people around you and their comfort levels?
I guess I'll take that one first, having drawn intimate details about my own life and consequently lives of now ex-girlfriends. The one, I don't have any kind of specific rules, but I try to in general respect the privacy of people as they feel about it. There's certain people that I wouldn't write some things about that I might write about other people. And one rule I do have is I never try to make any of my work about like assassinating someone's character or something. For me, it's less about character or people and more about using these real people, real situations to get at other ideas of what I'm trying to express about life. And obviously there are times when people have asked me not to write about certain things, and I've always respected that so far. So.
My comics are pretty personal as well, but mostly they're through my lens and don't have a lot of revealing facts about people other than myself, I feel. Of course, I feel this, and like my family and friends might feel differently, and I just have no idea. Mostly they're pretty supportive of it. And I think I'm the one that edits most of that stuff out. Like my friend Nellie appears in my comics a lot, and she's always like, you should do a comic about this crazy date I went on. And I'm like, no, I don't think I want to do that. I think that's too much for me to deal with. But yeah, it's mostly like edited by myself, and people have been pretty cool with it so far.
It's a lot of what I write is about things that I've read online or in the newspaper. So a lot of them are political things. And so I'm talking about them. So when people say, is that stuff that comes off the TV that Sylvia is watching, is that true? And it's all true. It starts from something that really happened. And then it just goes, it can go into a complete fantasy. Lots of people tell me stories. I listen to people when I'm in a public space. I'm listening very carefully to the stories that people tell, but I don't think that I'm ever revealing them because they don't know me, I don't know them. So my cartoon is not really confessional in that way or telling about other people in that way. Mainly, it's a sort of fantasy in order to get at the kernel of some kind of political or psychological truth that I've been thinking about.
I was just going to say that I don't really do comics like that are like, me walking around, which I said that, but I guess I kind of have done some stuff like that. But in general, what happens is like two things. People usually look at your book and you can kind of see them looking at it, whatever it is, and they'll be like, and they kind of have this confused look, and they're like, is this about me? Are you mad at me? Is this, why am I in this part? And it's not necessarily that you're saying something specifically about them, but hopefully, you are making people that read the book think a little bit about, their relation to the world at large. And, I don't know that I specifically, again, have thought about boundaries other than, some legal boundaries that I mentioned earlier. But, you don't want to do anything that's going to, again, push somebody's buttons as far as what's too personal to be.
Especially somebody who's a serial killer.
Especially somebody who's a serial killer.
Yeah.
The good news is, he's stuck in prison. But, so I think I'm safe. But yeah, I think that, in the work, you find this happy place, hopefully, where you're saying something that is enough of yourself that you feel like you're communicating something, interesting, but you're not maybe revealing so much that people think they know who you are. Because obviously you don't really know somebody, just because you read, you don't know Jeff just because you read Clumsy, I mean, I hope not, I hope he's different than that, a little, yeah.
No, that's all there is to me. After that, I just started making stuff up.
Kind of on that point, how do you handle like exposing really personal issues in your work that you have gone through already, and then having people, your audience, judge or have opinions on like the way that you reacted to certain things? I mean, how do you handle having people think that they know you, sort of?
Well, I think generally I just try not to think about it that way. I think as an artist, it's maybe important to think about audience and what you're communicating and what they're going to get out of things, but you can't let how people react dictate what you're trying to do. So mostly I just try to put out of mind what people know, and as far as like any kind of judging would go. And I also think that whatever reaction people have, whether it's positive or negative, I think as long as your work is getting them to think about things more or feel something, then that's your work being successful.
I have a question for you. I mean, what are you exactly thinking about? I mean, what would, for instance, if you had a character that told about some kind of how she was traumatized or sad over something, and it was a kind of an expose of herself, of her own feelings. Is that what you're thinking about? And you would worry what people conclusion they might come to in not being able to separate you from that character?
Yeah, basically, especially with like, I know their work is mostly like autobiographical. Obviously, It is about like their lives and whatnot. So, just thinking about how your audience would perceive, you as a character as opposed to you as the actual person.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think another part to that is that whether you're doing autobiographical work or not, like people are going to have opinions. So maybe that's, I don't know.
Maybe don't read reviews.
Yeah.
Like, it can be really hard when you're so kind of invested in your work and you're so represented in your work that people can be, saying a critique of the work when what they're saying is actually like, Lucy is, shallow, and Lucy is, like, spends too much money and stuff like that, which is like a critique of maybe the work that I've done, but it's hard not to take it personally when they're saying like Lucy is this instead of like Lucy's character is this. But again, like I try not to read most reviews. I try not to pay attention to that because it can be crippling to kind of be faced with the idea that people are like watching your every move and being like, oh, that's terrible, she's terrible, that's a terrible person. When it's like something you chose to share with people and you were like not ashamed of this thing, and then you suddenly realize, oh, these people didn't agree with that. Like, it's a difficult like distinction to make between yourself and your character, but like constantly I'm still trying to do that.
I think when you're working, I think you only think of what you're writing about and what your character is doing in relation to other people, and you actually don't think about an audience at all. It's just the writing and what you're doing. And then sometimes when someone does respond to you in an angry way, you are so shocked. It's like, well, if everybody tells you you're wonderful, you've got to expect that somebody will tell you that you are really horrible. Some woman wrote me and said, would you just lay off Sarah Palin? I said, actually I can't. And, if she would stop talking, maybe I would. And I wrote her, and she wrote me back, and she said, I said, really, I can't. That's what I've always been, I know what I told her, I've always been this way. I said, I never pretended to be fair or even-handed. I have always been a lefty. I've always been political. So really, I can't change now. I'm really sorry. And she wrote back, she said, okay. I mean, I was just absolutely amazed that she wrote back and said, okay. She said, but why don't you write something about Marion Barry? And I thought, Marion Barry, is he still alive? So everybody has their particular person that they want to get,
I'm not a serial killer. Seriously though, there's, a lot of people will look at something like a book about a serial killer and they think that you're trying to either, justify what they're doing or condemn what they're doing or anything like that. I think something as simple as saying that it's right or wrong is so obvious to everyone that looks at it in their own head, whether they agree or disagree, they know what they think already. So I try not to think so much about whether they're going to love it or hate it as much as I try to think about what is it to me that makes this interesting? What is it that makes me drawn to this? And what are the things that I don't know the answer to? And how can I explore those a little bit further? Because, obviously, again, everyone's going to say, well, yes, I agree, or yes, I disagree. They're going to have a very strong feeling when you're talking about some of these hot topic things like politics or how to behave in a relationship or, money or killing people.